I find myself here with Joe Marks, and you're the man responsible for getting this film here. So, why here?
Well, it seemed to be the appropriate venue at St Paul's A.M.E. Church. 13th, the documentary, which discusses the justice system in the United States and how we've gotten to the point where we have close to 3 million incarcerated individuals in the United States, far and away more on a per capita basis than any place else in the world. 25% of all the individuals incarcerated in the world are incarcerated in the United States. Wow. Much of it having to do with drug laws that were passed in the 1970s under the Nixon administration, but there's lots of reasons for it, starting with the wording in the 13th Amendment to the Constitution, which freed the slaves, but with a small little piece of language embedded in it that you were freed unless you were incarcerated. And that led to a whole host of problems, bringing us to the point we're at right now.
You think people who see that film will make them really think that prison reform is something that must be done now?
I'm hoping that it implants the seed that there are a whole host of problems that need to be solved, and one of them is this issue, that we have to get away from what we are doing currently. If we set out to design a system that guaranteed an endless supply of clients being incarcerated, this is the system we would design. It's just not working, and since we privatized it, it's gotten even worse. Okay, so our partners in this are Compassionate St. Augustine and Compassion in Action, and this event's funded by the Florida Humanities Council.
Thank you again.
Thanks.
I find myself here with Wendy Tatter, and Wendy is very active in the prison reform system, which is something that's taken some sort of an energy here in the United States, and it's nonpartisan. Democrats and Republicans feel something needs to be done. Now we're going to see this film called The 13th. I guess both of us don't know much of it.
We know that it's about the 13th Amendment and what it has done to our justice system, and hopefully we'll learn more after we see the movie. But I think the most important thing to me is getting felons' rights reinstated. I think that's extremely important. People that come out of prison now have nowhere to go and no hope for finding a job that gets them enough money to support their families. We really need to change the law on prison reform in the way of felons. They need to be exonerated, they've served their time, and we should get rid of the stigma of being a felon and a inmate, because they're not inmates anymore. Also, getting rid of mandatory minimums is really important, and changing the time served from, we've now got it at 85% here in Florida, it used to be 65%. And it does no good to incarcerate these people. It's kind of a money-making machine for the prison system, and it does not help the prisoner or the families. So
Billy Bragg had a song where he says, "I'm looking for a court of justice, not a court of law." And just now in St. Johns County, a special court to deal with veterans was open, which I think is amazing. And there goes that point where we need to yes, it's not applying a law, is applying a law with justice.
Exactly. And another thing that they need to really look into is finding jobs for people who do come out of prison. There's a lot of people who do start businesses with the sole purpose of engaging prisoners or ex-convicts and having them find employment that's legal and not minimum wage.
Right.
So more businesses that can do that kind of thing, which one of these days I want to do that with a sewing business and employ people like that.
Well, thank you very much for your time. All right, I'm here with Reverend Rawls. And Reverend, why have you decided to have this documentary, which is a contender for the Oscar, to be shown here at the church.
Yeah, but I think it's really important because of the knowledge that it provides. Many of our young people, unknowingly, they literally talk about the criminal justice system as a slave system, but they're not keyed in on the facts of where it actually is a modern day slave system. And so you see they talk about doing their time. When someone goes to jail, they get on social media, free whoever it is, and but I don't think they understand that it is actually designed. The system is actually designed as a modern age slave system, and I think if they had that knowledge, they would be a little bit more wise in decisions. And then the issues that come, from the mass incarceration that just really cripples communities. I think are conversations that we need to have. I really don't have any answers, but I think there are conversations that we need to have just to make sure that people are informed and can hopefully keep knocking until someone decides to and I kind of I think it was can't remember who it was. They said our criminal justice system doesn't need reform; it needs reconstruction, and I pretty much agree with that.
All right. Well, thank you.
All right, appreciate it.
So I find myself with.
My name is Marissa Faliga. I'm an attorney with the Public Defender's Office.
All right. And as an attorney, you're going to see this film for the first time?
No, I've watched it already.
Okay. And do you think it'll have an impact?
Absolutely. I thought it was a very powerful film.
What do you think is the strongest point that comes across from this film?
I think that the film does a great job of tying together a lot of different aspects that I've seen personally in the criminal justice system, and it roots it well in history and gives you a great context for all these different aspects. But I think it also does a good job of bringing a lot of different perspectives into the film to try and give a really full view of what's going on.
All right, a whole 360.
Yeah.
All right, I thank you very much.
No problem. Thank you.